just being a rather irritable young man, perhaps, in some of his...
He's a chirpy chappy.
A chirpy chappy, that's a good way of putting it.
A nice moment last season where he had a whiteboard, which was the speech bubble, and he was writing things on. As you can see, the decks, and the classes for these two players. Now, funny story for one of these players. So during the global games, we were about to go to an interview to the team. And in my ear, production went, "Interview with GeorgeC." And I was like, who is GeorgeC? And I was like, and I just threw it to, here's an interview with some player. And it was GeorgeC. And I was like, GeorgeC,
GeorgeC.
GeorgeC.
Right.
So I don't know whether to call him GeorgeC for the rest of the season. Do you think he'd appreciate it?
I don't think that matters. I think with all casting, you've just got to turn off what GeorgeC would like, because it would just be a kind of grumpy rumble about how great Freeze Mage is.
It definitely would be. And we don't see Mage for GeorgeC, so I am utterly surprised, because we saw a lot of Mage from GeorgeC during Global Games, for example, but he means business. He qualified going 7-0 in Qualifier 1 to get here. He hasn't played in any of the Premierships before. I don't know whether it's a situation of, I'm better than all these players. I don't need to play in the Premiership, but now he can make a statement and he can show us that he's the best player in the UK if he wants to.
I was kind of annoyed that he did so well. Like, obviously, I want him to do well. George is a really nice guy, but just the fact that he hasn't really competed so far. He's mostly done his tournaments in America. Obviously, coming second in summer championships last year to Dr. Hippie.
Yes, indeed.
He just comes back to the UK and just says, oh, all right, go on then. I'll give it a go.
Give it a go, and then
I haven't got anything going on. 7-0, the most decisive stomp we've seen in a very long while. And he was bringing weird decks as well. Like, he was the only player to bring Miracle Rogue, I think, which was not popular for a very long time in the tournament scene. Still isn't. It's not represented at all. I doubt he's bringing it in this instance, given how popular Keleseth Rogue is.
I think we're going to witness one of the best mechanically skilled players of Hearthstone in the UK in GeorgeC. I think when it comes to basing your decisions on what is optimal, what isn't optimal, George is very good at that. But we're going up against HelloLeeroy. Now, I don't want to discredit HelloLeeroy at all. I mean, first season of Premiership, when he came into it, he qualified first for finals. Okay, he finished fourth. And then second season, he got to the finals, he finished fourth. But he's still there, time and time again. He's very good at predicting an opponent and making and building decks around that opponent. He finds them predictable. Going up against GeorgeC, though, is something interesting. There was a little bit of banter in like the chat between the guys where he was like, George, what deck should I bring this week? I mean, typically, Leroy probably would go to George to ask that kind of question in previous seasons, maybe. I don't know how good friends they are. Maybe they're good friends, potentially.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
They'll be enemies for now.
Right,
That's what's certainly going to happen. But I'm excited for George in this aspect. And I think, well, I'd like to think he's excited too.
I do as well. I think you're saying the HelloLeeroy strategy of targeting a specific style of lineup build, it's hard to do with GeorgeC because he is known for specific decks like Freeze Mage and Miracle Rogue. But that's just because for like months at a time, he would just come home every day from school and just play one deck over and over again until he felt like he learnt it. He did that with Miracle Rogue, he did that with Freeze Mage, and that's why he's known for these decks. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's committed to that play style in the same way that players like Jambray or Green Sheep are more known for their aggressive play style. I suppose actually Jambray does bring all sorts of decks, but that's kind of what he's known for the majority of the time. But GeorgeC, he's hard to predict. I think he's going to be bringing whatever he thinks is good. Yeah,
HelloLeeroy, it's maybe not the first week he excels in, but yeah. Is he still in Excel? Yeah, I think he is. It's the week 2 or 3 when he sees what people have played previously, and then he starts building around that. So this might be a little bit different. You're completely right. It will be hard to read GeorgeC. And I like what you said as well, when he comes home from school. From school. I don't know if he's still at school anymore, but he certainly was back when he qualified for HCT.
I think he's done his GCSEs.
Yeah.
Like a good lad.
Yeah, I did mine as well, 10 years ago.
So did I.
Jeez.
5 years ago.
Yeah, now I feel very old. But he... Okay, George will probably hate me for saying this, but he is a really nice guy. A really nice guy.
Hate you for saying that?
He will, because he puts on this impression that he is the Hearthstone bad guy, right? That's his thing. And I'm ruining his mojo now by saying that he's a nice player, but he's known for just being a little bit, you know...
Bit of a geese?
Yeah. Just being like, oh, whatever.
I don't care. They're messing up the game. They don't know anything.
Yeah. And there was an interview in the Global Games as well where he had a horse picture in the background.
The horse pic.
And he said he wanted to burn it because every time he played with it in the background, he lost or something like that. But his granddad painted it. Yeah, so you can't burn it.
The classic Grandpappy horse curse.
One of the worst curses ever known to man.
It's up there.
Yeah,
in terms
especially
of
red-headed men. I know how he feels.
It's
It's one of the worst. The
red-headed
Grandpappy
horse curse. the bane of many a Hearthstone player.
But you spoke about his second place at Summer Europe HET. He got top 8 Europe Spring as well.
Yep.
I mean, that was last year, of course. He just missed out this year on qualifying. I think he was telling me he was 1 point off.
Wow.
Maybe 2, I don't know. He was very close, but he couldn't play enough games because of studying and because of school and stuff like that. He tried to jam-pack as much as possible in, but he was so close. He was a little bit frustrated, but at the same time, you know, you have your priorities. School is very important. Yada, yada, yada. HelloLeeroy, however, last season...
Not the brightest bulb in the pod.
No, HelloLeeroy is... I love HelloLeeroy as well. He's one of the greatest guys. Very funny guy if you ever meet him.
Yeah.
And very passionate about Hearthstone. He's one of these players that on webcam, you know what he's thinking, and you can tell if he's angry or if he's upset or if he's happy.
Because he writes it on his board.
He just writes it on a board and he tells you exactly. But that went against him last season a little bit. He got a little bit too cocky, and I think he'd probably put that down to it as well. He was very confident, overconfident perhaps, and he lost series with a thing, and he was punished for maybe confidence. I'm wondering whether we might see a little bit more of a relaxed and calm and non-banterous HelloLeeroy.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to spot because his signs of being tilted are quite subtle. You know, he'll leap across the room and throw his chair near, not necessarily out of the window, but towards the general direction of the window. So keep your eye out for how much furniture flies around.
There was I think it was season 2, or maybe it might have been last season. No, it's season 2, where he lost a game, or he was losing a game, and rather than conceding, he just got up, left the room, allowed the rope to burn, whilst we all sat there and went, well, we think that's game over, as the other player won, and he just never came back. So
he's still walking to this day.
Yeah, he never came back. Luckily, he is here in the Premiership, and like I said, he is furniture. We've started to develop personalities now, and of course, the 8 players that were invited back because of their performance last season, we're starting to see the same faces time and time again. It is nice that we are seeing new faces like GeorgeC, like Toast Monster. Or is it Toast? Is it Toast Monster?
Toast Monster,
not Toast Muncher. Who did win earlier? You're a Toast Muncher.
I'm not going to say that for you. I'm not going to say in front of all these people at home.
Okay.
I'm a toast puncher.
You just did, and I'm going to clip that and keep it for the rest of my days. We are, of course, waiting for these players to get started. We do apologise for the delay. However, at least we're having a nice time. Updates on earlier results, if you didn't catch them during the game. So Toast Monster beat Mysterious 3-2, and we also saw Lemon beat Ness 3-1. Those games off stream. So good performances from the new boys. And Lemon actually is a nice inclusion. I mean, I've seen his name pop up quite a few times with UK tournaments.
I think mostly just ladder success is his main thing. He hits those high ranks pretty consistently for a player that not many people have heard of. That's pretty rare. It seems to be a lot that hitting the highest ranks of ladder is kind of becoming more and more difficult, I would say, especially on the Europe server that he is most likely playing on. But we are finally ready to jump into the game. Murloc Paladin from HelloLeeroy. Not a deck I was expecting to see all too much of, if I'm honest. But I stand entirely corrected as to what kind of rogue GeorgeC would be bringing. This looks like a miracle rogue to me.
It does look like a miracle rogue. I mean, if it was successful in the qualification, why wouldn't it be successful now? The meta hasn't changed since then. Has it? No, that qualification was after nerf.
Was it after? Oh, yeah, you're right. It came a couple days after.
Yeah, it was after nerf. So, I mean, there's no reason why it wouldn't work now. Of course, it probably explains the delay. It looks like the webcams maybe aren't working for these guys, which is a shame, actually, because HelloLeeroy on webcam is one of the greatest things you'll ever witness here on the Premiership, apart from the beautiful face that is Derek Brown.
Oh.
Can be kind sometimes.
You attack.
Murloc Paladin, everyone thought wouldn't work, right? After the nerf. They were saying, it's just not going to be played anymore. That's another aggro deck that's ruined. But actually, we saw loads of success with Murloc Paladin during HET, did we not? There was a tournament I watched after nerf.
Right, okay.
Where Murloc Paladin really did very strong. I will cast my mind back.
Okay.
I will come back to it later if I can remember, but...
I don't know exactly what tournament that was. but it looks like at the moment it's not going to be getting the job done for Leeroy. Doesn't even get the buff on the Divine Shield minion with the Rallying Blade, and has hit absolutely no Murlocs on board or in hand in the first 3 turns of the game. And for GeorgeC, he's got a pretty nice little hand here. Not much value as of yet, a very cheap hand, but that's kind of what you want against Murloc Paladin, a nice fluid hand that's not too clunky.
During Trinity Series, I believe.
Trinity Series.
Trinity Series.
I did not watch that. That'll be the problem.
Which, of course, you can catch tomorrow on ESL _ Hearthstone.
Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah,
channel.
We saw the Murloc Paladin really show dominance, winning 4 or 5 games in a row in that format. Of course, it's a very different format, but still was doing a lot of work. Speaking of work, Hearthstone is pretty much work for GeorgeC. This man lives and breathes the game, and he's very good because of it. Burgly Bully there. A nice tech decision.
Yeah, an interesting card. It's not something we've seen all too much of in Rogue. It's kind of making me think, what kind of a Miracle Rogue is this? You know, it makes me lean towards something like Malagos Rogue, which I very much doubt this deck is. But it's an interesting inclusion, obviously for the synergy with Gadgets and Auctioneer to draw a whole bunch of cards, maybe even Sherazin to revive it a few more times. But Sherazin, for the moment at least, because of the high amount of weapons in Leeroy's hand, is going to be very unimpactful for the moment.
Yeah, and it's going to be a choice as well in a couple of turns for HelloLeeroy. He's of course going to get Finger on the board, and likelihood is GeorgeC probably won't play a minion into it. And then Hello's probably going to... I just called him Hello. Leeroy is probably going to keep that Finger alive for turn 7, so then get guaranteed value out of Bone Mare, potentially. But there's the Sherazin coming onto the board, as you said, but...
I think now it's pretty good because you're actually getting to a kind of scary life total given how poor of a start your opponent had. So if they're using their weapon just to clear off your Sherazin, you're pretty happy with that because that's damage that's not going to the face. And it's very likely that you would be able to resurrect it anyway, just with what you're doing, going about your everyday Hearthstone turns from here on in.
So I don't know what the thought process is here for Leeroy. Is he contemplating keeping this alive? Surely not.
Well, if you leave it alive, you guarantee yourself something to hit on the following turn with Sunkeeper Tarim, because you can just make all minions a 3/3, which means that Finger is guaranteed to kill something off. But I guess what he's thinking in response to that is he's probably going to play something on the following turn. And even if he doesn't, whatever, I just leave it stealth. And then it goes into a Bone Mare turn, which is a really nice turn, which is a really nice minion to hit with the Bone Mare buff, given that it has the stealth.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I mentioned maybe 2 turns ago as well. You've got this decision of, do I get the instant value of playing Tarim now, getting the trade, getting some Murlocs on board, or do I just pass here? I say I mean Leeroy. I am not HelloLeeroy. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, though. I'd like to be in HelloLeeroy's shoes for at least a day.
Just to see what is going on with that man.
Yeah, and where he walked that day when he left the room.
In which you are in.
Exactly.
Right.
Follow his footsteps, quite literally.
Ah.
Not figuratively this time.
Literally.
Literally. It is one of my personal gripes when people use the word literally in a non-literal sense.
Even though you've done it.
Even though I did it earlier today, yeah. My dad will tell me off later.
That literally makes me want to punch you.
That's concerning. Concerning if that is correct use, and I will be calling help from production ever so shortly. But yeah, the decision's still being made by Leeroy as to do just pass here. I mean, he could just play a dude. You could play a Megasaur and buff the Finger up if you wanted to, but I think... Okay. Alright, yep. Now he plays Sunkeeper Tarim after he summons the minions, I think.
Yeah, so, not the best minions to pull from Finger there, but I guess what he was thinking on that turn was, do I want to buff the Murlocs that come out with Megasaur or with the Tarim? If it was 2 War Leaders, then you definitely wouldn't want to go with Tarim. You'd rather hit them with the Megasaur. But in this instance, it works out okay with the Tarim, but I think overall, I definitely would have preferred the Megasaur, because if this is a Giants version of Miracle Rogue, the Sunkeeper Tarim can be one of the most impactful cards, because it gives you a way to deal with the Giants, and as the Paladin outside of that, you don't really have a way to do so.
And now we're about to see George have some fun here. He could literally...
This turn is nuts.
literally draw through his entire deck.
Well,
I mean, there is a possibility.
There's a possibility.
Almost of getting through all of it.
Right, okay. He can literally... Wow, he might actually literally do that. He can literally have a good turn, though, at least.
Yeah, it's... yeah, and there's the Giants.
And they're going to be coming down over the next turn or two. They're going to be so cheap after all these 0 mana and reduced cost spells that GeorgeC is throwing down.
Yeah, you can obviously use this Eviscerate. It's got Swashbuckler as well for 1 mana, so that works out really well. And what a disgusting turn, and this is why Miracle Rogue is so effective. Of course, there is still a target for HelloLeeroy to play this Bone Mare onto, but you feel like you have to clear the Auctioneer in most scenarios.
Maybe you don't, though. Your opponent's at 17. You can bring them down to 10. There's obviously no taunt or life or health regain in a Miracle Rogue deck. So possibly you go with Bone Mare. Maybe it looks unlikely that he's running the Pirate package in this deck, because I think if you're running that, you're probably going all out on the aggression. Your curve tops out at the Spike Ridge Steeds. But maybe you can get some kind of a charger to stick the second Bone Mare on, or just a minion on the board and then push for lethal. Because to be honest, I think if he keeps fighting for board here, he's not going to wrestle it back.
He isn't. He will literally get rock bottomed in that scenario, and
it's time to stop.
HelloLeeroy, like, this is the thing. He's going to trade, but now there's a Valspine Slayer there. There's the second Arcane Giant as well. And I've got to give credit to GeorgeC's patience, where he just waited to use all those spells until he got the Auctioneer. He was able to just pile through that early damage that we saw from HelloLeeroy, but now he's stabilized. He has the second Auctioneer if he really needs it later, but I don't even think you do at this point. You can adapt one of these minions, hope for Poison, which would be fantastic, and then you've got Valspine Slayer as well, and you clear this board.
Yeah, you just don't need to go for the Auctioneer yet. And I think I agree with you, as you were saying, about how much you like GeorgeC's play earlier on, because as you kind of become an intermediate rogue player, you realize you don't have to save all your spells for Auctioneer. You can be a bit more liberal and play them out earlier on. But then again, going back to how good of a Miracle Rogue player GeorgeC is, he realizes maybe you do just want to save them all for that one big turn with the Auctioneer. And I think he clocked onto that very nicely and has put himself in such a good position where his hand is basically just value at the moment. It's just stuff to do, which is exactly what he wants, because he's going to be pushing for lethal over the next couple of turns, and he's still at a decent enough life total to hopefully see him through. Yeah,
and he was more than happy to take 5 damage there as well. Right. A lot of players, or at least mediocre players, intermediate players, would probably say, I don't want to take that 5 damage, because what if my opponent has it? But he's calculated, and he says, actually, it's more important I keep my Sherazen alive here, I keep the board pressure, I can maintain that board pressure with these minions on board, and close out this game quite comfortably now. He's got Lay on hands next turn if he needs it anyway. It's looking like GeorgeC is going to go 1-0 up here.
Yeah, especially with double Arcane Giant as a possibility on the next turn. Tarim is out of the way, so I think he'd feel very comfortable in just playing all the big minions he wants. And Leeroy doesn't even want to see that. He just thinks this is too hard. If I'm fighting back against Rogue's minions with my own and not pushing for damage, they're just going to use their spells to clear off my stuff. It all starts to go wrong. It's just not even worth playing that.
What did you say earlier? I don't think that he's going to bring Miracle Rogue because Tempo Rogue's so good right now. Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
I think you said that.
It's a paraphrasing.
Did I agree with you? I think I did.
I think you probably did. I mean, it's a good deck, and I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't think he was going to bring it. Tempo Rogue is fantastic at the moment, but they're showing, when piloted well, the Miracle Rogue doing very, very well for itself.
That's the thing, it wasn't even a Miracle Rogue that drew the nuts and had an early Edwin or something like that. He literally waited. Oh my god, I've said literally again. Please just, all right.
I mean, he did literally wait.
He did literally wait, so I used it in the correct sense. So, so that's the last time. And okay, well.
I hate it, but you were right.
Now what is going on with my screen? Swamp King Dread.
At the bottom half of the screen as well, okay, I have to recalibrate what I was expecting to see from this tournament. This is 2 very weird mulliganing hands.
Now, HelloLeeroy I've always known to bring something a little bit spicy every now and then. It was actually annoying we didn't see him in the latter stages of Premiership last season, because he was just throwing Bitter Tide Hydras into everything at that point. And he had a Tempo Warrior that he was trying to make good, and he was convinced it was one of the best decks on the ladder. Turns out it wasn't. But this is a very odd deck. I mean,
spicy. For
GeorgeC, we're looking at probably, what, a Control Fatigue Warrior? That's not completely crazy.
Yeah.
We've seen it work. It works on ladder, but HelloLeeroy's is a little bit different. Dispatch Kodo, interesting.
I mean, the Fiery Bat is literally quite a spicy card. It's hot.
It is. And it's golden. It was nice, isn't it? A little bit of a golden card.
Love a golden card, me.
Oh, yeah. Stick that in your deck.
God.
Blood Razor will probably be saved here as well.
Yeah, that's going to be good at pretty much any point from here on in this matchup. Because you've got the damage from the Whirlwind effect, and also just setting up for a secondary Whirlwind effect without expending the mana means you're much more likely to be able to draw with Acolyte of Pain, Battle Rage, which you really want to be doing at all points with this Fatigue Warrior deck, which I don't think we have even actually mentioned. This is a Fatigue Warrior in the first week of the ESL Prems.
I'm just glad we're not seeing Fatigue Warrior versus Fatigue Warrior. Or am I? Actually, I would like to see it at least once in my lifetime.
It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Because once you do it once, you never want to do it again. I'm trying to think of other things that are the same. Skydiving, maybe some people would say skydiving. Yeah. It's like rock climbing. Climbing Mount Everest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a less than one-time thing for me.
Just never.
As in, no, please, not that one. But here we see the power of the Blood Razor doing a really nice job of keeping the board clear, and that's what you want to be doing against the Hunter, as is so often touted with this deck. It's a snowball deck. It gets a decent start in the early game, and it capitalizes on that with cards like Hydra and Highmane. And we do now see a very early Hydra on turn 4 coming forward from HelloLeeroy. No execute as of yet to deal with it, but a lot of damage options that can be thrown down by GeorgeC, or even just roadblocks in the form of second-rate Bruiser.
Opting to go with Bring It On as well, so reducing all the cards, of course, in his opponent's hand. But it does mean he can deal with the Hydra, so
and also
worth it.
It's kind of showing the Bring It On is showing one of the main ways that people thought it would be good when it was first announced, in you use it to make all your opponent's minions nice and cheap. They play out too much, overcommit to the board, and then you deal with it with your removal, which Sleep with the Fishes in combination with the second Whirlwind from Blood Razor would have done a fantastic job if HelloLeeroy had overcommitted to the board. But he smells a rat and doesn't want to go for the full dumping of his hand right there, which I think was definitely the right play.
Yeah, and yeah, you could tell he was considering the Razor more, but he was like, no, I don't want to do that here. And now for George, I mean, he's in a very comfortable position. He's managed to stop the early aggression from this Hunter. Yes, okay, there's a Highmane on the board, but he's already got the armor to deal with any sort of pressure that HelloLeeroy wants to put down here. Crackling Razor or Wind Fury may be nice. Divine Shield actually would be really good. Divine Shield is there. I think you Divine Shield, right?
I mean, if you're going to trade in, Divine Shield is strictly the best option because it gives you the highest amount of health after you trade into the Elise, and you're not damaged, so you're not vulnerable to an execute without some kind of a Whirlwind effect as well. But clearly he's not going to be trading in here because he went for the health, which means if a Whirlwind effect does come down, it will be left as a 6-7 rather than a 6-5. So because of this line of play, this was definitely the better choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. Second-rate Bruiser will be able to be played because of the minions on the board, but
I
shield block first.
Full cycle here. You want to in Fatigue Warrior in general, card draw is fantastic because of the infinite potential of Dead Man's Hand. But in this list where he's running Elise Trailblazer as well, draw is insanely good here. He wants to get to that pack as quick as he possibly can, as well as any other armor gain and removal you can go for. Maybe in this instance, there's a little bit too much threat on the board, but you could even just go Acolyte of Pain, attack in, Sleep with the Fishes in combination with the Battle Rage beforehand. You're drawing so many cards.
Yeah, I don't think you're too worried about the amount of damage on board just yet, but it can slowly go out of control. You don't have any sort of brawl to deal with it. It's just that Sleep with the Fishes combo that you've got, and now you're using it. So he is just going to have to draw, as you said, looking for a little bit more options. And second Bring It On. If HelloLeeroy does commit more to the board next turn, that Bring It On is going to be even more valuable.
Yeah, the second Bring It On this early on isn't that good because it's definitely one of the cards you want to be continually shuffling into your deck at the end. when you're in your super hyper late game dead man's hand scenario. But I guess against a hunter, you're probably not going to find yourself there anyway. So it's good in this instance once the hunter runs out of threats, which is not the case as of yet, especially depending what we get from Jeweled Macaw, which is the beast. Bit of a beast.
Not great. The beast. Never seen play. It is, of course, a big chunky minion, but
not bad.
It isn't bad. But HelloLeeroy is starting to put pressure onto this board now,
right.
and as we can see from GeorgeC's hand, there isn't actually a way to deal with this board. Okay, you've got your slam where you can start searching, look for a whirlwind effect combined with Sleep with the Fishes, but even that is going to leave plenty on the board to deal more damage. You don't really want to play your Death Knight Garrosh here because, well, then you can't armor up. And that whirlwind effect is going to be relatively useless at this stage.
You can do some cool tricks with the Garrosh here, though, in attacking with the Acolyte of Pain into the 6/5 high main, and then attacking with the weapon from Scourge Lord Garrosh, into the Dispatch Kodo. And because of the sweeping effect of the weapon, you only end up taking 2, and then you're left with.
I mean, it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, sorry, I was just.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. Of course, there is plenty of armor gain for GeorgeC. He has double shield
That's the
block.
main thing. Yeah.
He has, of course, Bring It On as well.
As an execute as
one
well.
of the executes, yeah. Okay, so that's what he wanted. I like what you touched upon as well. The Dead Man hand realistically isn't going to be that valuable in this matchup. It shouldn't get to that kind of late game stage. If GeorgeC can stabilize at this point and stay alive, he should be able to win purely with value as we get further into this.
So I think I do agree with saving the Scourge Lord Garrosh for a little bit longer, because it's going to be good from any point from here on in, basically. You want to be making sure there's no chance of a burst lethal, so taking more powerful defensive options, then following up with the Scourge Lord Garrosh a little bit later on down the line.
So a taunt coming in handy for GeorgeC, just delaying a little bit of this pressure. Again, HelloLeeroy is going to be reluctant to commit too much to this board. He's going to have to play the Beast. But it does mean that GeorgeC will have something after clearing it if he can get rid of the whole board.
So the Blood Razor in combination with Sleep with the Fishes, you can do... It doesn't work out perfectly. Even with the slam, you can't kill most of the minions coming down from your opponent, because if you slam the Beast, play the Blood Razor, and then Sleep with the Fishes, it leaves the Beast and the High Main both at 1 health.
And here's me saying that the Beast is terrible, but actually in this situation it's worked out pretty well for HelloLeeroy. It's an awkward minion that GeorgeC is struggling to deal with, and it has the potential to push 9 damage to face if it isn't dealt with. Stonehill Defender is a little bit more of a delay factor, but I guess that's what you need for George. He's just looking for those answers.
It's just so bad if your opponent like deadly shots it or hits it with the, even with the kill command, I guess, just to push forward all these minions and keep them healthy so that you can't get them down to a lower health total and kill them with Sleep with the Fishes. It's really tough here for GeorgeC.
I think you have to bring it on, realistically.
I don't know if you do. I think if you can find, a decent option here like the Public Defender to just throw down, I think you're okay for the moment, because you just want to be damaging your minions even just a little bit, so Sleep with the Fishes is a little bit more impactful, especially when you have more mana to spare in using more Whirlwind effects. So I like going for the Public Defender here, but I agree that going with the Bring It On wouldn't have been terrible there at all.
Well, and Public Defender changed it completely, right?
Yeah.
By having that option available, it changes your play. He knows... the thing is, there's more cards now available for HelloLeeroy. Double Sleep with the Fishes being available with the Slam and Blood Razor, that allows him to clear the whole board, potentially?
Yeah, I think he's really just looking for a way to kill off the Hyenas with it as well. Looks like he's going... It looked like he was going for it before the Blood Razor. I think you probably want to throw the Blood Razor down first. And then you will leave your opponent only with the Hyenas after you double Sleep with the Fishes. But then at that point, you can just kill off one of them with the Blood Razor, and your opponent is left with only a 2/2, and you're looking in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and it's the, again, the patience from George as well. Reluctant to pull the trigger and panic by using the spells to clear off what he could. Instead, he waited for the perfect combination so that he could clear off close to everything.
I predicted a turn correctly with Fatigue Warrior.
I'm pretty proud of you.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, the banter bell is quiet at this point.
Banter bell is quiet.
Yeah, because I'm actually trying to not mess up this game, because all the previous games were a little bit more standard. It's stuff that we've played a lot of times over. But Fatigue Warrior is a hard deck to practice just because it takes so long to play every game.
It really is. I was sat next to Dog at the Global Games Finals watching him play it. He didn't take his shirt off, unfortunately. I did ask him a few times. But he was explaining to me a lot about how the deck works, what to do, what not to do, and even he was losing game after game after game. And he was saying, I could have won this game, but I made this misplay.
Yeah. So here, the dead man's hand is looking like it's going to come down. This makes sense because you've got a pretty good hand that you'd be very happy to shuffle in. The Battle Rage is fantastic. The Bring It On, as I've said, one of the key cards you want to be shuffling repetitively back into your deck, as it just means you cannot lose in the fatigue scenarios whatsoever. And he can also get, GeorgeC can get a complete board clear, it would seem, with the Ravaging Ghoul, as well as the Whirlwind effect from the Blood Razor.
Yeah, and this is the thing, he's taking his time here, but realistically, after the Bring It On, putting yourself up to 15 armor and hero powering is, well, it looks bad, but because he can armor up, this is going to be absolutely fine. He can take himself up to what? 14? 13? 13.
Well, even just the 10 here, you're just going
10
with
is fine, yeah.
Yeah, because you're down to so few cards left in your deck, you're very likely to find the other Bring It On that you've shuffled into your deck, and he has 2 Scourgelord Garages as well, is a whole bunch more armor gain. Another game played with a very mentally taxing deck from GeorgeC, and played very well.
Are we surprised? No. I'm answering for you because that was really well played by George. In a lot of situations, people do get too excited about their removal and they get too worried about the amount of damage that is incoming.
Right.
Whereas George was like, no, I'm going to keep it calm and keep it chilled. I've got my second Bring It On. I know that I have my panic button. Yeah. Not the banter bell. I almost used that as a panic button.
Don't you use sacrilege.
No, yeah, exactly. That would have been disgusting for that to happen. But I'm really impressed. I mean, I'm not surprised because we know what GeorgeC is capable of. But he's now using his Hunter, which was one of the decks actually he used when he went 7-0 in the qualifiers. That's
right. Rat Pack, one of the interesting inclusions in that iteration of the deck as well. He was questioned as to why he would put that in his deck over the Bear Shark, and his answer was simply, it's better against aggro. A stickier minion. There are obviously lower stats and no positive effect other than the Death Rattle. But just that you can get the dream scenario of Rat Pack into Houndmaster is good enough for him.
Deciding to coin out the Grandmother rather than play the Firefly there, I guess that's saying, well, if he plays a 1-1 here, I can play my Scavenging Hyena and trade. And it means next turn I could just play 2 Fireflies, so I think it was a good decision in the end.
Yeah, working out pretty nicely. Going wide on the board as soon as possible before the Spreading Plague comes down. The Scavenging Hyena, still not fantastic here, given that both the Fireflies are obviously not beasts, so just using his weapons to keep the board clear, then following up with minions to face. I like the Eagle Horn, though.
Yeah, but do you trade one of these Fireflies in, or do you use Kindly Grandmother? I think you use a Firefly, because then you've got the option of still getting the buff for Scavenging Hyena, or it's 2 minions that your opponent has to remove for Houndmaster not to come down as well, so...
It's stickier.
Yeah, and a very quick decision as well by GeorgeC. I mean, it looked... It was a simple one, realistically, but...
That play was quickie and sticky.
Yeah. I have a lot of comments.
That one's free.
A lot of comments on that particular sentence, but I don't think they're appropriate. So we're going to move on instead. As now HelloLeeroy is trying to stabilize, he will be able to use the Wrath to clear off the biggest minion. And I was saying it's more difficult to clear 2 beasts, but he does so very effectively.
Yeah. And it denies any possibility for Houndmaster, which is why I believe HelloLeeroy was going for this line of play. He could have gone with the, you know, swipe to clear off a couple more of the other Firefly minions, but making sure the Beast is gone works out fantastically for him here because GeorgeC has to play off curve. He's not buffing anything. It's a lot worse of a turn than if there were a Beast in play.
Now, Spreading Plague is always amazing against aggro. But especially when a Rat Pack is available, that can usually provide several more minions to get some Scarabs on the board.
I think you probably just go for it right away, though. Maybe it'll be there'll be the possibility to get more later on down the line. But in this instance, just the fact that it's small minions is pretty good for a spreading plague, because when the Hydras and the High Mains come down, you're going to be busting through these spreading plagues with 1 minion each. But in this instance, you can respond very weakly with the minions you have on board, but clearly HelloLeeroy disagrees.
Yeah, he's gone for the Doomsayer and he's saying, well, he's going to have to use everything that's on board now to clear.
Right.
Then next turn, I can get potentially more value out of Spreading Plague. But actually, the Houndmaster is going to be a pretty big punish here.
Yeah, I think I disagree with this play because it's so easy to kill off the Doomsayer, and also because even if it does go off, you're going into turn 7, whereas Medivh is the minion you want to play on an empty board. If this was clear on turn 8, it would be fantastic. And going with the Spreading Plague on the previous turn, there's a good chance at least one of them sticks around, which is more defensive options to help keep your Doomsayer alive.
And unfortunately for HelloLeeroy, there's no way at the moment to deal with this Rat Pack and the rats that it produces as well. I said that quickly changed with the Wrath coming off the top. Of course, now if you want to, you can Wrath and use the Jade, and then you can swipe what's on the board.
Yeah, you can swipe. Unfortunately, we can't see the Spreading Plague in combination with the Wrath. Once again, the nerf to Spreading Plague coming into effect, because we would very much like to see a Scarab for every single weeny little rat that comes down from GeorgeC.
So rather than clearing this board, HelloLeeroy's game plan is, all right, I'm going to give you a big board, because then I've got Spreading Plague next turn. And this goes all the way back to that turn where he played the Doomsayer rather than clearing. And he's saying that this was what he wanted. He wanted to allow GeorgeC to get value off of his Rat Pack so that he can punish him a little bit later on. But with Scavenging Hyena available, is this going to come back to bite him in the bottom?
I think it very possibly is. The Hydra can come down on this turn, which means, you know, it's giving your opponent another Scarab, but it breaks through that Scarab as easy as anything. As you said, the Hyena will make such quick work of anything your opponent could do because of the amount of buffs it's going to get.
Because now you can Hyena into Hounds, into Clear, into Hounds, or you can use the Direwolf Alpha here as well. So Direwolf, Scavenging Hyena, Clear, 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 Hounds, Clear, Clear, Clear. And you're going to have a big old Hyena there.
A very big Hyena. The biggest. Everybody says so.
Yeah, this is very juicy for George. And we were saying, is this going to backfire for HelloLeeroy? Well, it might. How much of these can you actually get through? Most of them?
Yeah, a surprising amount, actually. If you, like, just damage all of them while killing off your own minions, you give yourself the most amount of room to summon a whole bunch of Unleash the Hounds. I keep getting confused with how Unleash the Hounds works versus Spreading Plague, because obviously the Unleash the Hounds is just for every minion your opponent has, regardless of how many you have. But yeah, I think he's playing it pretty well, because any more than this and he wouldn't even have room for the Hound, so it doesn't matter that he killed one off with the Hydra there.
Yeah, always just had to make room for 4 in any scenario.
But this, you know, this, as you said, this play kind of felt like a bit of a joke, but this little tiny Hyena has now become a threat that is nigh on impossible. It's pretty much just impossible to deal with for Leeroy, and okay, until that swipe comes down, that'll do it.
It will do it, but it is going to leave a Hydra still on the board, right? Yeah. The Hydra is still going to be there, and that's all your resources wasted. Druid typically does struggle with removing big threats, but that's all Leeroy's resources in removal used now. That's going to be both Rats and both Swipes gone, and we know that Hunter can just bombard you with constant pesky minions that can come onto the board, and once the High Mains come down and the Hyenas come out of it, it's very difficult to get back.
Yeah, doesn't even have the privilege of drawing with the Wrath there, just because he has to kill this off. There is no choice. It looks, for the moment at least, like he's protected from the High Main attacking in straight to his face, because it has to get through the Scarab. Even with Unleash the Hounds, it wouldn't be able to get through until the Houndmaster comes through, and the 8 will be able to connect to face. And it seems like there's absolutely no way for Leeroy to deal with the Hydra now.
Play slower, George. Allow Daruk to speak. Think his mind. He's having to constantly change his game plan because you're playing so fast.
I guarantee you he's doing this to spite me.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
I think George does a lot of things to spite many people. But one person he really is spiting is HelloLeeroy, who suffers a 3-0 loss in his first game of the Premiership this season. And GeorgeC, on his debut of the Premiership, gets a 3-0 win.
He's 10-0 in games so far. With all qualifiers, with series?
No, yeah, so he's 8-0 with series. So he went 7-0 in his series.
In his series. Oh, yeah, of course. And then, oh, yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, he's 8-0.
8-0 in series. But still, that's...
In 2 weeks' time.
That's pretty good.
Maybe he'll be 10-0.
You never know.
At this rate, he's looking like a dominant force. We had a little discussion before the show went live, and we were saying we're really looking forward to seeing what George can produce, because he is known for how well he plays and what a good player he is. In the end, do you think it came down to decks from HelloLeeroy, though? I mean, I spoke and said he was good at judging what his opponent's going to play, but there was some odd inclusions there.
There were odd inclusions. In terms of the classes, it was pretty standard stuff, but the weird inclusions like the Dispatch Kodo and the Fiery Bat, neither of them looking particularly strong there. I like his own personal flavour he's bringing to his decks, helps him to stand out as a player, which is not something to be ignored if people are talking about you. It gives you a little bit more popularity within the tournament, but it didn't look like that was the strongest build for him.
It was a shame for HelloLeeroy to fall 3-0, and it was a bigger shame actually we didn't have the webcams available, because I talked up how exciting it would, and it would have been an absolute meme fest, because I'm sure GeorgeC would have put on a show as well after winning 3-0. Not that kind of show. Stop it.
Just kissing the horse, being like, thank you, horse picture,
yeah,
for blessing me.
Stroking it. Next up, we are going to have Duncan versus DeathC. It's going to be last season's new boy